You are here for a purpose, and that is no accident. There is something significant about this very moment. It might feel ordinary on the surface, but a deeper sense tells you that your being here matters. You did not arrive at this point by chance. The timing of you discovering these words, encountering this message, or being drawn toward this moment holds a meaning that might not be apparent right away. If you were to walk away without paying attention, you could miss something important that this moment is trying to reveal to you. There is a feeling surrounding this experience that seems deliberate. It is almost as though life intentionally placed a message before you, knowing that one day you would be prepared to receive it. As this unfolds, something starts to shift within your outlook. What may have once seemed accidental begins to feel purposeful. What seemed unclear starts to make more sense. The confusion gradually gives way to curiosity, and that curiosity turns into a quiet sense of clarity. There is a person tied to your energy in a deeply powerful way. This person thinks of you far more often than you realize. Their thoughts are not random or fleeting. They are steady. They come back to you throughout their day, even while they are occupied with other duties. Somehow your presence keeps surfacing in their mind. You appear in their thoughts during everyday moments and during quiet stretches when everything around them slows down. When the day grows still and distractions fall away, they often catch themselves thinking of you. Their feelings are layered and complicated. At times, their thoughts about you feel emotional. At other times, they feel intensely personal. Sometimes there is a sense of spiritual bond. Other times there is unmistakable physical pull. What they feel cannot be reduced to a single category because it exists on several levels at once. They are drawn to your appearance, but that is merely one piece of what holds their attention. What truly lingers with them reaches far beyond how you look. They notice your character. They notice your energy. They notice the way you carry yourself through life and engage with others. There is something about your presence that leaves a lasting mark on them. The way you express yourself stands out. The way you handle challenges stands out. Your way you treat others stands out. Your kindness, your honesty, and your natural warmth create an impression they cannot easily shake. They view you as genuine. They do not see you as someone who hides behind masks or pretends to be different than you are. Instead, they see someone who shows up authentically. In a world where many people seem guarded or put on a show, your sincerity feels like a breath of fresh air to them. They view you as sweet. They view you as kind-hearted. They view you as real. None of these traits feel forced through their eyes. They feel natural. They feel honest. They feel like a true reflection of who you are. And that authenticity is one of the biggest reasons their feelings keep growing. Rather than fading with time, their thoughts about you remain present. The connection stays alive within them because it is rooted in something deeper than surface-level attraction. There is also a feeling within this connection that they find hard to put into words. From early on, something inside them hinted that meeting you was not merely coincidence. They may never openly admit this, not because the feeling isn't real, but because they tend to guard the deepest parts of their inner world. This is someone who feels emotions intensely. When they care about someone, they care profoundly. When they feel connected, they feel it powerfully. The struggle is not feeling emotions. The struggle is expressing them. Over time, they have learned to be cautious with vulnerability. They have lived through situations where opening up too soon led to letdown. There have been moments when they revealed their genuine feelings only to find that the other person didn't understand or value their honesty. Some experiences left emotional wounds. Some experiences taught them hard lessons. Those lessons reshape the way they approach connection. Because of what they have lived through, they often grow cautious when emotions begin to deepen. They pay close attention. They watch. They think carefully before revealing what is stirring inside them. Even when their feelings are sincere, they don't always show the full extent of those emotions. A part of them wants to draw closer. A part of them wants to open up freely. A part of them wants to stop concealing what they feel, but another part of them remembers the past. That part remembers what happened when they invested emotionally too fast. That part remembers letdown. That part remembers imbalance. That part remembers feeling exposed. As a result, they often find themselves torn between longing and caution. They want closeness, but they also want protection. They want intimacy, but they also want safety. This creates an inner struggle that continues beneath the surface. The interest they feel toward you is genuine. The emotional bond they feel is genuine. The attraction they feel is genuine. Yet every feeling passes through a filter of caution before reaching the outside world. They are constantly weighing how much to reveal and how much to keep guarded. This is not because they are indifferent. It is not because they don't care. In many ways, it is because they care so deeply that they become careful. You remain someone they think of often. You remain someone who takes up space in their mind even when they aren't trying to think about you. There is something about you that stuck with them, something that never fully faded. The impression you left was not fleeting. It settled into their awareness and became part of how they view connection itself. Whether they fully grasp it or not, they sense that you are different. You are not just another person they happen to encounter. You are someone who left an imprint, someone who made an emotional impact, someone who continues to stand apart in ways they cannot easily put into words. Because of this, the connection creates a quiet tension inside them. Their past experiences still shape how they approach relationships. At one point in their life, they were far more open. They would express feelings freely. They would grow attached quickly. They would share their emotions without holding back. When they felt something, they showed it. When they cared, they made it clear. When they connected with someone, they gave themselves fully. But life taught them difficult lessons. There were times when that openness wasn't reciprocated. There were times when their honesty was misread. There were times when their vulnerability became a source of hurt rather than connection. After enough experiences like that, they began changing how they guarded their heart. The openness that once felt natural started to feel risky. The emotional freedom they once enjoyed became something they approached with more care. Over time, they built stronger boundaries. They learned to slow down. They learned to watch before acting. They learned to safeguard their emotional energy. This shift didn't happen because they stopped feeling deeply. It happened because they felt deeply and understood the cost of becoming emotionally overwhelmed. In the past, they experienced emotional highs that felt thrilling and full of hope. But those highs were sometimes followed by painful lows. Those cycles taught them that intensity alone doesn't guarantee stability. As a result, they became more deliberate, more thoughtful, more measured, more aware of how quickly emotions can build. Today, they approach connection differently. They no longer trust emotional speed the way they once did. They believe meaningful connections deserve patience. They believe trust should grow naturally. They believe emotions become stronger when built on solid ground. Sometimes this makes them seem distant. Sometimes it makes them seem hard to read. Sometimes it creates the impression that they are holding back. The truth is more nuanced. Internally, they are not disengaged. They are regulating themselves. They are trying to stay balanced. They are trying to avoid repeating old patterns. They are trying to protect both themselves and the connection. Even so, something significant is beginning to shift. They are not shutting you out. They are not walking away from the possibility of something meaningful. Instead, they are learning. They are adjusting. They are discovering that emotional safety doesn't require total silence. They are starting to understand that there is a difference between being guarded and being unavailable. There is a middle ground, a place where honesty and caution can coexist, a place where vulnerability doesn't have to feel dangerous. As this awareness grows, their behavior begins to shift. The changes may not be dramatic at first. In fact, they may seem very minor, but they matter. Small actions often reveal the biggest shifts happening beneath the surface. You may notice them becoming more willing to reach out. You may notice them starting conversations more often. You may notice them creating chances to stay connected. A simple message may arrive out of nowhere. A casual check-in may show up during an ordinary day. A conversation that once felt short may start lasting a little longer. They may find subtle reasons to remain present in your life. They may suggest spending time together in ways that feel easy and comfortable. Nothing will feel forced. Nothing will feel rushed. The process will unfold naturally. That's because their feelings aren't fading. They are growing, quietly, steadily, consistently. As trust continues to build, their actions begin lining up more closely with what they feel inside. The gap between emotion and expression starts shrinking. The walls that once felt necessary begin coming down piece by piece. They start realizing that avoiding emotional expression doesn't truly protect them. It only delays connection. it only postpones chances for something meaningful to grow. And so they begin taking small steps forward. Not careless steps, not impulsive steps, intentional steps, balanced steps, steps that let them stay true to themselves while also making room for something deeper to develop. Little by little, they grow more comfortable revealing what has been there all along. The interest, the curiosity, the attraction, the emotional connection, the appreciation. All of it begins making its way into the open, not through grand gestures, not through dramatic declarations, but through consistency, through presence, through genuine effort. Because beneath every layer of caution, every moment of hesitation, and every attempt to stay emotionally balanced, one truth stays constant. You continue to matter to them. You continue to take up space in their thoughts. You continue to stir emotions they cannot easily dismiss. And as time moves on, the connection slowly finds room to breathe. The fear shrinks. The trust strengthens. The uncertainty becomes clearer. What once stayed hidden begins to show itself through actions, choices, and quiet moments of sincerity. And as that process continues, they grow more willing to meet the connection where it actually exists. Not only in their thoughts, not only in their imagination, but in reality. One step at a time, one moment at a time, one genuine action at a time. Because some connections leave an impression that doesn't fade. Some people stay in your thoughts long after that first meeting. Some encounters keep growing in significance instead of fading away. And for this person, the connection they feel with you is one of those rare experiences, a connection that continues to stay with them, a connection that continues to evolve, a connection that quietly reminds them that meaningful bonds aren't always instant, but they are often worth the patience it takes to understand them. And as they keep learning how to balance caution with openness, they move closer to expressing what has lived in their heart far longer than anyone realizes, slowly, genuinely, and in a way that feels real. And that is where things slowly begin to open up. The energy between the two of you starts shifting toward greater balance, greater understanding, and a steadier rhythm. What once felt uncertain begins to feel more grounded. What once felt hard to read becomes easier to understand. As this shift develops, something important becomes clear about this person. They are not naturally passive. Deep down, they are someone who takes action once they feel confident about what they're doing. They are someone who values progress. They are someone who prefers motion over standing still. Their nature is not to remain still forever or ignore what they feel. The reason they sometimes seem inactive has very little to do with a lack of interest. It has far more to do with timing. It has to do with trust. It has to do with emotional readiness. They like to feel sure before making important moves. They prefer understanding their emotions before acting on them. They want to know where they stand internally before creating change externally. Because of this, there comes a point where slow thinking begins turning into doing. The feelings that have existed beneath the surface for a while no longer stay confined entirely to their thoughts. Those feelings begin finding practical ways to express themselves. This is where movement starts to show. You may notice them becoming more proactive. You may notice them reaching out more often. You may notice them seeking opportunities to create interaction rather than waiting for circumstances to hand those opportunities to them. The communication starts carrying more purpose. Instead of conversations limited to casual exchanges, there is more intention behind their words. They begin looking for ways to spend time together. They begin looking for ways to stay connected. They begin looking for ways to build shared experiences. Simple conversations may turn into actual plans. A casual message may become a meaningful invitation. A brief exchange may grow into a longer conversation that feels more personal and engaging. They may start checking your availability. They may ask about your schedule. They may try to line up their plans with yours. Their focus gradually shifts toward creating real moments rather than just picturing them. This is the energy of someone moving from observing into participating. Instead of watching the connection from afar, they begin stepping into it. Instead of wondering what could happen, they begin making things happen. At the core of this shift is a desire for shared effort. There is a growing awareness that meaningful connections are built together. They understand that one person cannot carry the entire emotional weight of a relationship. There needs to be balance. There needs to be mutual involvement. There needs to be willingness from both sides to contribute energy, attention, and care. As this understanding deepens, they become more interested in building something alongside you rather than simply imagining what might be possible. At the same time, it's important to understand the natural pace of their personality. Even when they care deeply, they rarely rush. Even when they feel excited, they prefer moving steadily. Their process involves reflection. Their process involves adjustment. Their process involves making sure they feel emotionally grounded before taking bigger steps. Because of this, progress may sometimes seem slower than expected. The connection may not unfold dramatically. It may not develop through sudden declarations or impulsive decisions. Instead, it develops piece by piece, moment by moment, choice by choice. The pace may be measured, but the direction stays forward. That distinction matters. Slow movement is still movement. Careful progress is still progress. What matters most isn't the speed, but the consistency. As they continue processing their emotions, they gradually become less ruled by old fears and past disappointments. The emotional weight they once carried starts feeling lighter. The experiences that once caused hesitation begin losing some of their grip. This doesn't happen overnight. It happens through reflection. It happens through growth. It happens through learning new ways to understand themselves. When someone becomes less weighed down by unresolved emotions, they naturally become more present. They become more available. They become more open to connection. They become more willing to engage with life as it is now rather than through the lens of old experiences. There is a bigger truth beneath all of this. People often move carefully when they've been hurt before. Not because they lack feelings, not because they lack interest, but because they're trying to avoid repeating painful patterns. They want different outcomes. They want healthier experiences. They want greater emotional stability. As they learn from the past without letting the past control them, their ability to connect freely begins to expand. Real change doesn't come from shortcuts. It doesn't come from guarantees. It comes from self-awareness. It comes from maturity. It comes from the choices people make every day. It comes from choosing to approach life differently than before. This is why meaningful transformation usually shows up gradually. The signs are often subtle at first. More communication, more consistency, more effort, more willingness to engage, more willingness to show up. These are the signals that reveal genuine investment. When someone truly cares, their actions begin reflecting that care. Not perfectly, not constantly, but consistently enough to create noticeable change over time. This is where their action-driven side becomes easier to spot. They stop limiting the connection to thoughts and feelings. They start giving it space within their daily life. They make time for it. They create room for it. They become more deliberate about nurturing it. Instead of simply responding when opportunities arise, they begin creating opportunities themselves. Instead of waiting, they begin participating. Instead of hesitating endlessly, they begin choosing involvement. As this happens, the dynamic between the two of you starts becoming more structured. The uncertainty gradually decreases. The connection feels more grounded. The emotional energy becomes easier to read. There is still patience required. There is still a need for understanding. There is still a need to let things unfold naturally. But the difference is that movement is now present. The connection is no longer standing still. It is progressing. It is evolving. It is finding direction. Over time, this becomes one of the clearest signs of change. Action begins replacing hesitation. Engagement begins replacing silence. Consistency begins replacing avoidance. And those changes reveal far more than words ever could. Because real intentions are often shown through behavior. Real interest becomes visible through effort. Real connection becomes visible through participation. As this process continues, another shift begins forming beneath the surface. A sense of balance starts taking shape within them. It doesn't happen suddenly. It is gradual. It is quiet. It is the result of many internal adjustments happening over time. Something that once felt tense begins easing. Something that once felt unstable begins settling. Something that once felt emotionally confusing begins becoming clearer. Earlier in the connection, there may have been a constant push and pull. One moment they felt close, the next moment they felt unsure. One moment they wanted connection, the next moment they felt the urge to pull back. This pattern created emotional tension. It created internal conflict. It created confusion about how to move forward. But little by little, that conflict begins losing its intensity. The emotional energy becomes more organized. Instead of reacting to every feeling right away, they begin observing those feelings more closely. They start understanding themselves better. They start recognizing the difference between fear and reality. They start noticing which concerns belong to the present moment and which belong to old experiences. As emotional clarity grows, mental noise begins fading. The overthinking that once dominated their outlook becomes less powerful. The endless questions begin slowing down. The fears stop controlling every decision. The imagined scenarios lose some of their grip. In their place comes greater awareness, greater understanding, greater emotional stability. This allows them to see the connection more clearly. They stop viewing it entirely through the lens of past disappointments. They stop assuming every meaningful connection will end the same way as previous ones. Instead, they begin evaluating what is actually happening in the present. That shift changes everything because when fear loses its grip, authenticity gains room. When anxiety eases, presence grows. When emotional clarity increases, healthier choices become possible. As a result, their behavior naturally starts changing. They become more comfortable staying present. They become more comfortable with emotional closeness. They become more comfortable letting meaningful experiences exist without immediately questioning them. The hesitation doesn't vanish entirely, but it no longer controls every action. Their ability to stay engaged grows stronger. Their willingness to remain connected becomes more consistent. Their comfort with vulnerability slowly widens. This creates room for deeper interaction. Communication begins flowing more naturally. Their words become clearer. Their intentions become easier to follow. The emotional ambiguity that once existed starts fading. Instead of relying entirely on subtle signals, they begin expressing themselves more directly. At first, these expressions may still be cautious. They may still be measured. They may still reflect their thoughtful nature. But they carry more honesty, more clarity, more confidence. What once stayed hidden begins finding expression through actions, conversations, and meaningful gestures. At an even deeper level, something significant is happening within them. Different parts of their emotional world are starting to work together. The part that wants connection, the part that fears vulnerability, the part that hopes, the part that protects. Instead of competing with one another, these parts slowly begin finding balance. This creates emotional steadiness. The desire for connection no longer feels like a threat. The need for protection no longer dominates every decision. A healthier middle ground begins to form.